Hey, so we're in this little room that they have set up here in Jamestown, a hearth, and we're going to talk about hearth and home a little bit. So unlike Plymouth, Jamestown started with just men, like Kurtis said, 144 men and boys, and they were going for the get-rich-quick, and it didn't work. Well, they weren't all going for the get-rich-quick. Some were. Oversimplification. Yeah. But they were hoping for quick returns. Some of them were, and so they didn't bring women. And they realized very quickly that in order to build long-term, multi-generational legacy here, they needed to bring women and have families and disciple the wilderness with their families. So the London Company advertised for women, and they would just... they come off the ship and be selected as brides. They viewed marriage very practically, which I think can be a very beautiful thing. And they started families and had babies and were mission-minded. I think there's more that I could say about those women. They just had incredible courage. Some of them, if you can read the writings of William Googe, he was a pastor in England at the time, and just calling people to evangelistic motives. And what do you got to piggyback off that?
I think that what do you need?
You grab the phone.
Oh, you want me to hold the phone? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. You hold the phone, I'll talk. Okay, so the one other thing that we should think about here is that, sorry, I was pulling it up and there it scrolled. You're going to have to take it, Kevin. Thank you. Every time I shut my file, the phone turns it off. All right. Yeah. Oh, yes. So, as Aubrey was saying, a very practical view of marriage and family built this civilization. But it's good to keep in mind that with every civilization, the positives are only as beneficial as the submission to God is a piece of the puzzle. So, regeneration produces lasting Christian civilization, and if you have that, then when the laws of God are applied lawfully, they produce massive benefits for everybody involved. Whether it's you had Willie, whether it's for the people that come or the people that they find here. So, as far as let's go this way. Okay, come on, Soph. We're gonna move. So you can make room for some other people. We had to make moves so that a tour could come through, guys. So we're just going to move to a different room. We could just walk over to the church. Want to do that?
Yeah, head over to the church.
Okay. All right. So again, as we say, when the settlers came here, they were, as we talked about, producing culture and bringing it here. And the things that were hard about the native culture that was here, as far as they began to embrace Christian culture and were regenerated, they began to experience the benefits of Christian culture. And that's something that is a really controversial topic. And again, that's why we built the foundation at the start of the first two episodes are important to listen to. If you want to understand the concept of why colonization is different than sorry, I almost grabbed it. Different than people expect it to be. So again, culture. There are different kinds of culture. Some are better than others. That is not a discriminatory thing to say. Even though in our culture it would be considered that way. Because if God defines culture, it is best. So those are just some things to think about. We'll discuss that more tomorrow as well.
Kurtis is going to just jump in here quick about the 1619 project.
Oops,
yeah, so one of the things that, and we've even heard it here, but is popular in culture right now, is 1619 project, which would have you believe that the founding of America was built on slavery. But in 1619, the first African Americans that came here, they weren't slaves. They were indentured servants. There's no evidence to suggest that they were slaves. The only evidence here is that they were indentured servitude because there were only free blacks for the first 60 years of Jamestown's founding. And they worked off their servitude just like everyone else who came to Jamestown. People who couldn't afford to come, they sailed over here on the promise that somebody else, when they got there, would pay their passage, and then the people would be indentured servants for up to 7 years, sometimes longer, that they would work off the debt that they owed to the person, the company, or whoever bought their passage. So that's how a lot of the plantations worked initially here in Jamestown. It wasn't until the 1680s that the Africans came as slaves and became part. But for the first 50 years, it was all indentured servants who came. So when we look at the building blocks of society, the family, the church, and the state, then we can really understand the culture of colonialism here in Jamestown and see why it succeeded as an enterprise. All right, so right there, the biggest building in the settlement, and which was the biggest building, was the church. It served as both the communal meeting area for worship on the Lord's Day, and the sermons were often preached daily. Prayers were held as a vigil daily, and any public meetings were held in that building there. So their first preacher, Master Robert Hunt, he was instrumental, John Smith says, at the very beginning of their voyage. They sat off the coast of England waiting for favorable winds, and it took 6 weeks before they got underway. That 6 weeks builds a lot of strife among people who are just sitting idle, doing nothing. And he was viewed as instrumental to the promoting of peace and righteousness among the people there. So Reverend Richard Buck, who replaced him, wrote of him, that is, Robert Hunt preferred the service of God in so good a voyage to every thought of ease at home. He endured every privation, yet none ever heard him repine. He was the truest friend to the general good of all. So he fought tirelessly to maintain the peace and upstanding righteousness of the colonization efforts, and he also went so far as to get shot through the neck with an arrow, and yet that didn't kill him. But he was a very sickly man most of his life, and that did not change when he got to Jamestown, and he eventually succumbed to an illness and died here. But this is one of the important aspects of recognizing of church and family life in the colonial colonies. And we'll talk more about... Oh, Aubrey's got something here.
Yeah, I was just going to finish up with you, Kevin. Just talking about what we're going to do tomorrow. This is our last episode here, so I don't think we covered exhaustively colonialism by any stretch of the imagination. Our goal was just to
Scratch the surface.
tickle your interest, and we're going to post some bibliography to these videos when we get back to our Airbnb tonight, and hopefully that encourages you to think outside the box, especially if you've been stay educated, and realize that there is a truth that is being hidden with a subversive agenda that doesn't love God.
That is here, you guys, just for the record, as we've been here this whole time. Nobody's been unkind for the most part, but there is a definite agenda here. Lots of people sharing it, lots of people communicating their own version of this story, and some people that are definitely very uncomfortable with our version of this story. So it's good to know that not only is there another narrative, but it's actually a very divisive and even what's another word to describe it? It's controversial, and there's a lot of emotion behind it. It's a violently, even sometimes violently controversial issue, and it's becoming more so with time. So it's not something we can look away from, really, especially when we're starting to look at our own heritage and history and see it be reinterpreted so powerfully. So that's why we wanted to do this, even though it can be intimidating.
Yeah, dig into colonialism, read some of these books, and top recommendation of all recommendations, Rushdoony's American History. You have to listen to that. You can read it on, what's it called, Chris? Kevin?
PocketCollege.com.
Awesome and free. You guys
and
take
advantage. He has amazing bibliography as well. So if you want to know what happened, the ideas that govern men, then go ahead and listen to that.
Forget dates. Well, don't forget them, but forget dates. Forget the unimportant facts.
The ideas are more important than remembering all the actual facts of things. Recognizing the trends, the ideas, the impetus, and the motives behind things and why they happen.
If you do that, if you understand the ideas, the facts begin to make sense. The dates connect. The ideas is what brings it all together. So join us.
Thanks for listening today, and we'll jump in with the rest of the story to the revolution tomorrow in Williamsburg. See you there.